understand nationalism as a modernist ideology. Nationalism didn't exist before modernity in this sense. And nationalism is a form of self-worship which modernity propagates in. So modernity moves or tries to move away people, nations, and civilization away from worship of God, which they used to do. For example, in Christianity, they used to worship God, and in Islam, they worship God. So modernity is an ideology of self-worship, worship of humanity. So that's why modernity is part of humanism. But that self-worship takes various forms, and the self-worship at the level of so we can think of self-worship at three levels at least. The individual level. So that's the heart of liberal. That's the liberal tradition in humanism. You can self-worship at the level of species being, the level of humanity. So you don't worship necessarily your individual self, but you worship humanity as a whole, or humanity as a species. And the third is nations or groups. So this is generally a communalism. Nationalism is its self-expression. So at this level, you worship your own group. So you worship yourself through worshipping your group. And although the seeds of all these ideologies are present in human nature before modernity as well, the systematic and ideological nature of these ideologies didn't exist before modernity. So the root of let's say individualism is in fulfillment of desires, in what Christians used to call avarice and covetousness, self-aggrandizement, etc. And the root of species worship are the same, although the difference is you see the self as a larger self, which is humanity, and you try to, or archetype or ideal type of humanity, and you try to situate yourself within that self. And probably the sentiments or feelings of superiority over other beings is part of this. And in the third one, the main force is all the above, but superiority over other groups, their fear and hatred is important as well. So these things were present before, but they didn't have systematic, ideological, philosophical, material, political expressions and underpinnings, which they achieve in modernity. So nationalism become political project, which first is used to disintegrate and destroy religious civilizations, which were universal in their um, orientation, and which included various nations at the social level. And then you try to build nation states as the expression of the self aggrandizement of a group, and this state is based on fear of other nation states and competition with them, and trying to get superiority over them. Nation states become the tool of war and exploitation of different groups and destruction of some groups, and etc., etc. And it is through nation state and nationalism that then liberalism points windows into human heart and soul, and socialism. And then they tame nationalism, sometimes successfully, sometimes unsuccessfully, to penetrate into human societies and human civilizations. Okay, I think that's enough for sort of introduction. There's a few other things I want to say before proceeding. We'll do that in the next session, inshallah. Subhanakallah wa bihamdika, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. وصلي وسلم على سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى ال سيدنا ومولانا محمد وبارك وسلم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. الراحمين آمين.